some of you may have heard of Sir John Templeton. He was a billionaire investor, the Warren Buffett of the last century. He made his money buying penny stocks in the Great Depression when no one else would buy companies. He would buy quality companies for nothing. No one else was game to buy them, but he was willing to. Why? He could see the intrinsic value, which is something you'll learn this weekend. And he was interviewed, become a billionaire, and he was interviewed, what's the key to becoming wealthy? And everyone's ready for the stock tip, right? What's the stock to invest in? He said to the interview, he said, you know what? The key to becoming wealthy is this. He said, gratitude. He said, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank account, but if you lose perspective on life of where you're at, then you lose your wealth. He said, it doesn't matter how little money you have in your bank account, but if you're truly grateful for everything that you have, then you are truly wealthy. And you know what he said? He said, and something I do to this day, he said, what people should do, and I want you to consider doing this, jot this down. He said, you should wake up every morning in your life and you should focus on 5 things that you're grateful for. 5 things that you're grateful for. And I've been doing that for many years of my life now, and it can get you focused and makes you realize how lucky we really are. And think about it in this room. I mean, how blessed we are in this country, one of the richest countries on the planet, where anyone who has initiative and willing to take action and have a go can have an abundance in their life. And we already have massive abundance. The poorest person in Australia is one of the richest people on the planet. Does that make sense? Yet they mope around, make excuses, blame, or there's not opportunity, you can't do this. Jot this down. It's nothing but bullshit that holds them back. If they have a perspective, you go, no, what can I be grateful for? Some of you have seen the Secret DVD, which is true about manifestation. Unless we acknowledge and grateful for the things we already have, how do we manifest and have more of that? And it wasn't until my mentor kicked me up the backside and said, look at your asset column. You already have all these amazing things in your life. Start being grateful for those things and stop about the blaming excuses. He said, you can go to court and try and get your money back. He said, the time you do that and money you'll spend, he said, you put that energy not into your past. The past is gone. Put that energy into your future. He said, you'll make millions of dollars before you'll ever get the money back that's owed to you. He said, put your energy into your future. Be grateful for what you have. Be grateful for your lessons. Be grateful that you failed, because if you didn't fail, they would not give you the keys to what you're going to need in the future to be successful. Does that make sense? So gratitude, I think, is one of the key elements of having the mindset of the wealthy, of being grateful for what we have. And we have so much in this world. Think about all the things you have to be grateful for right now. The people in your life, your health, the career opportunities. Some of you have a chance to hear from Harry Dent this weekend, and I was interviewing him yesterday, and I'll share that tomorrow. But I was saying, what is the best country in this global credit crisis too that's coming? What is the best countries or country to be in? And you know what he said? Australia. He said Australia by far is one of the luckiest countries, has been, and will be one of the best countries moving forward. And we'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow. So, why aren't most people wealthy? Well, my millionaire mentor, he said to me, Jamie, do what most people do. They weren't taught at school how to be wealthy. They weren't taught at university. He said, let me ask you a question. Where do most people go to learn about finance? Who do they go and see? An accountant? Financial planner? Is that true? He said, my millionaire mentor said, Jamie, go and see a financial planner. And he said, as you're sitting there listening to what they're trying to sell you, the commission-driven financial planners in this world, and he said, what they're trying to sell you on this concept, he said, what you should be thinking in the back of your mind, he said, you should be thinking, if this person, this financial planner could show me how to be financially independent one day, live my dreams, have a great life, the obvious question is, why haven't they done it themselves? Not to pick on financial planners. I'm sure there's some good ones out there. I just haven't met any yet. I'm sure there's some here, but many financial planners agree with me about that industry. So he said, go and see a financial planner. See, here's the challenge. We know teenagers. Who should you study if you want to become rich? A poor person or a rich person? A rich person. But the average Australian, the reason they're not as rich as they could be is because they're not taught at school, they're not taught at university how to be financially educated, and then they'll trot off, if they do anything, they'll trot off and see a financial planner. Why? My entire peer group, a lot of self-made millionaires that did in their 20s and 30s, now in our late 30s. I don't know a single person that's wealthy that I know personally that says, Jamie, here's how I become wealthy. I went and saw a financial planner. I'm sorry, I'm sure there's some, but I haven't. All my friends in my peer group, this is how they become wealthy. You want to know how they did it? They invested heavily in a financial education. See, my friends 15, 16 years ago, some of my friends back then thought, why are you spending all this money? Why are you borrowing all this money going to debt to do seminars? There was no seminars like this back then. I had to go overseas. And that's what I started to do, to get an education. My mentor said, you need to go and get yourself educated. So I was traveling overseas. I was investing tens and tens of thousands of dollars into my financial education, into my real life education. And some of my friends at the time were going, you're crazy. Why would you waste all this money on seminars? And I'm thinking to myself, hello? I just spent a fortune going to university. And university is nothing but really highly priced seminars. The Australian government, the third largest export earner in this country, is tertiary education. $18 billion a year is sold mainly to foreigners to invest in their education here. That's the highest priced seminars you'll ever attend. $18 billion worth of them. Does it make sense? My friends thought they were crazy, but I was investing so much into university. I'm like, why wouldn't I invest a similar amount into my own financial education? But Jamie, there's no guarantee of success. Well, was there a guarantee of success at university, yes or no? No. So I went out there and I invested heavily in, because people say, where should you invest first? I'm telling you, invest in yourself first. You are your greatest asset. And we say, well, what if education is expensive? Well, try the other way. Go out and do it without education and see how expensive it is. Does it make sense? So I invested tens or over $100,000 over a period of time. I'm not saying you have to go and invest $100,000, but some of you, would you? You did that for university. Would you do that for your own financial education? Here's the challenge in this country and why most people are not rich. One of the reasons is this. They won't invest even $30 into a book. What I didn't learn at school but wish I had. Or Rich Dad, Poor Dad. To become wealthy. Does it make sense? They want wealth, because if they weren't deluding themselves, of course they would want wealth, but no, we're not going to invest in our education. Does it make sense? People that value their education are the people that become successful. Now I'm talking, the key to success is a real life 21st century education. Having that financial education. To this day, I continually invest. If I invest $5,000 to do a seminar, I get one idea out of that, that can make me tens of thousands of dollars. That can actually make me, these days, millions of dollars. How much is that money that I borrowed years ago to get myself educated, how much has it made me? The investment has been massive. So my point is, one of the reasons people aren't as rich as they could be in this country is, one, they're not financially educated and they're not willing to be committed enough to invest in their education. Yet they're committed to invest in the university degrees. Make sense? I'm saying we need to invest equally as much into our own financial education if we want to produce the results that we're capable of. Okay? The other reason is we go and see a financial planner. We go and see financial planners and this is what financial planners, jot this down. This is what financial planners will show us, basically. Not all of them, but majority of them. They'll show us a chart, and this chart will show us that the stock market goes up and down, but it always rises further beyond its previous fall, which is true. Last 150 years, the stock market has continued to rise. It's dropped up and down, but it continued to rise. True? And they'll say, you should invest in the stock market because it'll average 13% return. And don't touch real estate because real estate only averages about 6%. Make sense? This is the typical financial planning spiel, which is true. They can back that up with statistics. But they say, don't invest directly in the stock market though. No, that would be too risky. Because most people think, well, investing is risky. It's time consuming. I don't know how to do it. I was never taught at school. Well, how do I? So they don't. They say, here's what you should do. You should invest into a managed fund. Let the experts take care of it for you. You can keep on doing your career. You don't have to do anything. It'll be looked after. They'll invest it for you. They'll manage it for you. And then at retirement age, at age 65, your managed fund will have grown and grown and grown because they do the buy-hold strategy. Jot that down. The buy-hold strategy. That's what they teach, true? Buy and hold, and in 20, 30, 40 years, it'll have risen in value, okay? Now, I call it the buy, hold, and pray strategy, okay? And we've seen in the stock market crash, the 2008, the first global credit crisis, it highlighted that this was a flawed strategy. It's designed to sell commission-driven products. Even our friends at ASIC finally cottoned on after 12 years of highlighting this to Australians, that it's a recipe for disaster. Uneducated people being sent to licensed financial planners to get a piece of paper to be a licensed financial planner in this country. Did you know as a hairdresser, to become a hairdresser, to cut someone's hair, you need 3 years of training? But to get a piece of paper to be licensed to give advice to Australians on financial planning, you need less than 3 weeks of training, and not one bit of that training teaches them how to be a successful investor. I mean, most financial planners have never invested a day in their life. They have not produced a PhD in results, but they've got a piece of paper that says, I can give you advice. It's a marketing ploy. Does that make sense? That's why even ASIC, after 10 years, have figured out, maybe financial planners have a commission-driven bias about what they're doing. Maybe they're not giving advice. Maybe they're selling an investment. Repeat after me. Something to think about. Hello, was there anyone recognizing this? And that was the challenge. So I've been, the financial planning industry love me. I've never been invited to speak at the financial planning conferences, and I'm not expecting an invite anytime soon. But I know at some of their conferences, they've said, we've got to stop people like this. They're affecting our business. People are leaving financial planning industry in droves, and they're going to seminars, financial seminars. We're going to lose our customers. We have to do whatever. And they lobbied to the ASIC. They lobbied for years to try and shut down our industry, to get rid of people like me that are outspoken and got the guts and courage to stand up and tell it how it is. Because I've seen the damage financial planners have done to this country. Let me share an example with you. Because most Australians could be so much richer if they got themselves financially educated and did it themselves. It's not that complicated. Sure, you're going to still need help and support. But I'm suggesting step up, learn, get yourself educated, do it yourself. Otherwise, you're at the mercy of a commission-driven financial planner that did 2 weeks training, that got a piece of paper to advise you on money, when after 2 hours of this seminar, you know more than the average financial planner. Actually, after 10 minutes of this seminar. Does it make sense? And I'm sorry if I offend financial planners, but I can tell you the financial planners here, you go, you know what, he's actually right. I got in the financial planning industry because I wanted to help people. I wanted to make a difference, but we're just given commission products to sell. The financial planning industry is 90% owned by who? The banks. The same banks that created the global credit crisis were partly to play in that. The same banks that create these products that spread around the world, that decimate people's portfolios, that decimated America. Their bank products sold, push out by clever marketing salespersons. Does it make sense? I'm saying don't rely on that. It's a machine. I'm saying get educated, otherwise you'll be at the mercy. Now, Peter Costello, when he was treasurer, he didn't win an award for being the world's greatest treasurer, but when he was treasurer, Peter Costello said very clearly, he said to Australians, if you don't remember, this is what he said to each and every one of you. He said, Australians in the future will have to become self-funded retirees, because there'll be no pension in the future to fund everyone's retirement. A self-funded retiree, he was basically saying to each and every one of you, you have to become an investor. There is no choice. You have to become an investor. Therefore, it's not a matter, well, Jamie, I don't want to get a financial education. You have no choice. Get financially educated, or you'll be either a good investor or you'll be a poor investor. Make sense? So is this important, or yes or no? Absolutely critical. That's why this should be taught at school. That's why Australians should have access to financial education. Not just the fortunate 6,000 or 7,000 that are here. You have such a competitive advantage over everyone else in this country. Think about that. If someone becomes a neurosurgeon and they invest 6 years at university and become a neurosurgeon, they earn $450,000 a year. And someone's a garbage collector and earns $50,000 a year. Does that garbage collector have the right to say, it's not fair in society? Why does a neurosurgeon earn $450,000 and I only earn $50,000? Doesn't have the right. Does it make sense? Because the neurosurgeon has invested heavily in their education, has expertise that few people have. Therefore, there's a demand for neurosurgeons. How many people can be garbage collectors? Anyone. There's still a demand for it, but anyone. So that's why they get paid. The greater your skill set in society, and so few people that can do it, the greater your income potential. Does it make sense? And that's why it's critical. By getting an education of business and financial education, you have extra skill sets that give you a competitive advantage where you can outperform those that don't. And some people will go, well, Jamie, are you saying everyone in Australia can become wealthy? Absolutely they can, but there'll always be those that are wealthier than others. Is it true? And I know they might want to taxes and take the money off and give it to the poor people. But giving welfare, has that really ever helped anyone? I believe in a hand up, not a handout. I've seen welfare decimate people. In this country, there's a lot of people decimated because they've been given a handout instead of a hand up. Everyone has the capacity within themselves to be able to do better and take care of themselves. Those who are less fortunate in society that don't, most people are more than happy and generous to help those who unfortunately can't help themselves. Does that make sense? So we want a compassionate, compatible society. The point is here, people led down the garden path. Let me share with you a story. Storm Financial. Give me an example. Financial planners, Storm Financial. Some of you may know who they were. They said to clients, here's what we should do. Actually, jot this down. They were financial planners on steroids. Storm Financial, before it collapsed, lost Australians jot this down, $4 billion in retirement money. $4 billion. If someone said, go and see a financial planner, and you end up rocking up at Storm Financial, you'd be pretty happy these days. Is that true? You lost $4 billion. Why? Because instead of educating you how to do it yourself, they said, here's what you can do. You got a house, get a line of credit on the house. Yeah, it makes sense. Pull out some money. Let's say the average client pulled out $300,000 in equity out of their house. And they said, what you can do, you want to get rich and make a lot of money, is we're going to take this $300,000, we're going to put it in the stock market. But what we're going to do is we're going to put it on steroids, because the stock market's always risen. It'll go up and down, but it's always risen. Okay, buy and hold, and you'll do well. So they leveraged this up and put it into $1 million into the stock market, 300,000 of equity, and then leveraged up. So now the average Aussie has $1 million in there, but not in the stock market for themselves, in a Storm-branded fund. $1 million. Now, they can show stories because other people in a bull market, they might have started with $500,000 and now have $1 million. Leverage on steroids is working when the market's going up. But by the way, they did charge you 7% for that opportunity. See, people not educated will pay 7% because they don't know how to do it themselves. Tell me, how much is 7% of $1 million? You ought to be able to add up quickly to become wealthy. $70,000, is that true? $70,000. And now, here's the situation. Most people were wiped out from that. Now, you can be taught how to do that strategy. You have to pay $70,000 in fees to financial planners to know how to do that strategy. You could learn that strategy for $5,000 or less in financial education, but learn how to do it yourself, but actually do it properly. Because what you'd learn is how to protect yourself. Storm didn't go and say, we're going to look after our client's interest. We're going to look after our interests and protect that. Where if you knew how to do it yourself, what you could do is put insurance in place over that $1 million, so when they come crashing down, you would have not lost your money. You would have been protected. Actually, you could have turned that into a massive profit. So when the markets come crashing down, you don't have to panic. If you're educated, you'd know how to respond to that and make money. Does it make sense? But that's because we had a choice. People were not financially educated, and they signed up for that. Now, that's an extreme example, but $4 billion is a lot of money. Now, am I saying here today that if you get financially educated and you go out and get a financial education, does that guarantee success, yes or no? Yes or no? No, it doesn't. I'm not here to suggest and advocate that you get financially educated, that will guarantee success. It doesn't. But here's what it does guarantee. It guarantees that you're more likely to succeed than those who don't have it. It also guarantees that you're less likely to make mistakes like that. Making sense? So my message is pretty simple. Those who have a financial education in this country will outperform those that don't. Is a financial education expensive? Well, it depends what you consider value. University is expensive. For these days, for a fraction of that. I mean, $197 this weekend. Is that expensive? So there's a lot of valuable tools and resources where you can get yourself educated. It's the only. Now, I know I'm speaking to the converted. You already know this. That's why you're here. Is that true? But we need to do more in this country to get people financially educated, because the more Australians that save more, invest more, the better off we are as a country. There was a little country not far from here, used to be a third world country. No natural resources whatsoever. Tiny, you could walk around it in a day and a half. Third world country, used to be. But they're a nation of savers and investors, highly educated, highly committed, highly driven. And their economy grew at 14.7% last year. Anyone know which country I'm talking about? Singapore. No natural resources. Their resources are themselves, the individuals that live in that country. High savings rate, high investors, highly educated. The better we are educated, the better off the country is collectively. Does it make sense? We have so much wealth. In this country, we have the land mass of the United States of America almost. Yet we have only 24 million people, 7% of the population. We are so wealthy, we don't even get it yet. We can boom for the next 40, 50 years and beyond. Should we be too worried about this global credit crisis too? No, we should be busy growing the country. We have so much wealth. And you say, well, how do I become wealthy? You'll learn that in the next 2 days. Wealthier. Does it make sense? There was a young guy that grew up in a small country town. He lived in a few country towns, but he spent time when he was at school in a town called Inverell. It's about northern New South Wales, about 45 minutes from where I grew up. Small town. His dad said to him at 18 years of age, son, if you don't leave town now, you never will. Probably good advice from a dad then, because at that age, if you don't leave a small country town, then you probably stay there forever and have a great life. But he decided, instead of working in a car dealership in the town of Inverell, that he would leave. He would go chase his dreams. He left a small country town. At 28 years of age, he started working for the mines, not for the mines, but he was an electrician. And he started working, servicing the mines in the Hunter Valley. And at 28 years of age, he had a dream. His dream was, he was a smart guy, think about this. He was able to deduce at 28 years of age, after being around the mining industry for quite a few years, he figured something out. He figured out that the people working for the mines don't make the real money. It's the people that own the mines are making the money. Does it make sense? Who thinks they could have figured that out as well? At 28 years of age, he figured that out. At 28 years of age, he said, you know what? I don't just want to work for the mines for the rest of my life. I actually want to own a mine. Now, the challenge with owning mines, they usually cost tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. Is that true? He didn't have that. So some people say to me, Jamie, it's all right for you millionaires, it's all right for you billionaires, you have money. Of course, to make money, you have to have money. Is that true? How many people say that nonsense? But he had a dream. He had a vision. He had the audacity to set a goal and write it down. To say, you know what, I'm going to do something more with my life. I'm not going to be mediocre. So he decided he was going to buy a coal mine, and he found one for sale. The only challenge with the coal mine is a coal mine lease, and it was going to cost him $30 million. Didn't have $30 million. Most people say, well, I guess that's not for me. I'm just going to keep on working for the mines because I don't have a lousy $30 million lying around. But he didn't give up there. He said to negotiate. He said, now, what he figured out, to be able to negotiate to buy a coal mine, he probably needed a group of lawyers to represent him so he would look like he's got some money. He didn't have any money to pay the lawyers. So he knocked on a few different law firms' doors and convinced them and said, you know what? I'm going to buy this coal mine. I don't have any money, and I want you to represent me. I don't have any money to pay you either, but will you represent me, and I'll pay you double if the deal comes off. Make sense? Now, of course, most law firms said no. One law firm took him on because they thought, you know what? There's something about him. He has a sense of certainty and conviction. He believes in what he's doing. Just maybe he is right. So after 2 years of negotiating to buy this coal mine, they wouldn't sell it to him. There was about 12 other tenders, but eventually the market had changed and other tenders fell over. So he was the only one left. And after so much persistence, they decided, okay, you're so goddamn persistent trying to buy this coal mine. Here's what we'll do. They were able to negotiate the $30 million coal mine. The negotiation was, if you can come up with $1 million, jot this down, non-refundable deposit. $1 million non-refundable deposit, then we'll give you 6 more months to pay another $6.5 million. And by in 2 years' time, you have to pay the balance of the $30 million. Does it make sense? So $22.5 million in the 2 years, 6.5 in 6 months, at $1 million non-refundable deposit. Now, that's an opportunity, isn't it? Now, he didn't quite have the $1 million, but he had a house and he had a side service business he'd set up and he had some friends. He was willing to commit. He sold all that, raised the $1 million from all those sources. Now, let me ask you a question. Was he now partly committed or totally committed? Was he like, I'll just put my toe in this water and see how this coal mining business works and see how it goes? Or was he like, you know what? He's putting everything on the line. Now, sometimes that level of commitment is what it takes to make a lot of money. I'm not saying you have to go and do that. I'm just sharing a story of what he did. Now, he's a country kid. Never owned mines before. What would he know about mines? But he had a dream. He had the ability to be certain about what he wanted to do. So he comes up with $1 million non-refundable deposit. Now he's got 6 months to find $6.5 million and 24 months to find another $22.5 million. Raise your hand if you'd be a little bit stressed at this point in time. Be like, my God, I thought I had financial pressure. That is stress. Donald Trump was in Melbourne recently. Some of you had the chance to meet Donald or hear from him. And it's a good thing that Donald said. He said, you know what? Most people won't make it because they can't handle pressure. It's true. And it's about what we talk about, the ability to deal with uncertainty. It's the ability to deal with pressure. You want to develop that psychology where you can deal with pressure. So not only did he need $6.5 million to come up with in 6 months, he needed to raise $2 million in a hurry to drill test the coal mining lease to see whether there's any coal there. Didn't have $2 million, so he went and knocked on every door, every broking firm he could find in Sydney. Rejection after rejection. You're crazy, as if we're going to give you $2 million. What track record do you have? None. Who are you anyhow? Some kid from the country town? He didn't listen to what other people said. He wasn't worried about being a victim. He was worried about getting a result. Eventually, he convinced a small stockbroking firm to go out to their 60, 70 clients and raise $2.5 million. He had to give away percentage equity in his company to do that, but it's one way he had to be creative to come up with the financing. They drill tested, and guess what? He was right. He knew enough about coal mines that there was a lot of coal there. After they drill tested, they had the results to prove this coal mine is loaded. Okay? This coal mine is loaded. And as a result of that, what he was able to do is then he was able to sell it. He didn't want to sell it, but his partners wanted the cash. His partners wanted the cash, so what he had to do is he ended up having to sell the coal mine. It was bought out by a larger Australian company, and he got $177 million in shares for his share of the coal mine. Is that amazing? $177 million. But it didn't end there. He believed in it. What he did is he borrowed money against the shares that he got to buy out his partners. And he bought their shares. He bought the shares at $8 a share. The company that bought out his company, the shares went from $8 to $20. He got a phone call from his Sydney broker that said, we have a buyer for your shares and the money will be, if you want to sell, we'll sell. And he agreed. And 2 days later, he had $452 million in cash transferred to his bank account. Not shares, cash. Is that a good payday, yes or no? Give him a hand for that, by the way. Now, am I here to advocate that you all have to go out and make hundreds of millions of dollars, or that you can do that? No, I'm saying if you could be 1% as successful as that gentleman financially, would you be happy, yes or no? At least 1%. Modeling doesn't guarantee you're going to be successful. If you model Richard Branson in business, doesn't mean you're going to have $8 billion companies, but what if it means you can improve your current results even slightly? That's what modeling is about. The story didn't end there. What he decided to do was he decided to start again, because some people say, oh, he just got lucky. Remember, all the cynics, oh, he just got lucky. Yeah, lucky made $452 million. It's not luck. He decided to do it again. Some of you know who I'm talking about now. Is it true? He decided to do it again. He decided to invest $25 million into another mine and borrowed the rest. And he listed that company last year, and he owns 30% of another $2.5 billion company. So he's now the youngest, richest person under 40 in this country, worth over $1 billion. 2 transactions. Give him a hand for that. A country boy that grew up with a dream, but was willing to take massive action, entertain a new idea, and take massive action. And was able to achieve that. Now he owns half of Newcastle. Actually, you don't need that much money to own half of Newcastle, but you'll have a bit of spare change. Newcastle Knights and the soccer teams there and the rugby league teams, etc. Nathan Tinkler, it's an amazing story. So I share that with you to give you an insight to what's possible when we live in such a rich country. Do we just watch the news or we do something about it? We've all known there's been a mining boom going on in Australia for some time. Is it true? How many of us have taken advantage of that? You're going to hear a success story from a young lady later today, a 21st century member, and how she's done quite well just on a small scale as well. You're going to hear many success stories because they're going to help inspire you. Does that make sense? I'm just about out of time and I have a few other things that I have to share with you. But quickly take 30 seconds now, turn the person next to you, and teach them how to become a billionaire like Nathan Tinkler. Go for it. We looked at why most people are not financially successful. We looked at blame excuses and hold people back. We looked at a financial education is far less expensive than university. It's also far less expensive than relying on the financial planning industry. So what we're going to look at very quickly in the few minutes I have left with you, also going to look at what is the mindset also that holds people back. Drop this statistic down. I think this is very interesting, and for many of you in the room, it's quite advantageous. Did you know that if you're an immigrant to this country, that you're 4 times more likely to become a self-made millionaire than if you're born here? That's good news for some of you, is that true? Others, you're like, I knew it's my parents' fault I was born here. But when you think about that, it's important because why is that? Why is immigrants that move to Australia, now I don't think it counts for Kiwis that move here though, unfortunately. Okay. But Australians, immigrants that move here, why are they 4 times more likely to become self-made millionaires? I know what it is, because when they arrive, they speak perfect English. When they arrive, Australians are extra friendly to the latest comers that arrive here. It's because maybe the government gives them a grant or a business-free loan. None of those things, they actually disadvantage yet they outperform. I'm going to suggest to you the immigrants coming here have a certain mindset or psychology that has them more successful than those that were born here. Does it make sense? And if you can understand what that is, then that will help you identify what is the mindset of a millionaire. Because do they tend to work harder, yes or no? Are they willing to start at the bottom, yes or no? Are they willing to work as a family and as a team, yes or no? Do they have to have a certain psychology to leave the country and leave everything behind and take a risk and deal with massive uncertainty to come to a new country, yes or no? Do they have to face their fears, yes or no? Are they willing to have a go? Do they also see the opportunities we have in Australia better than those that are born or no? Because often they have a thing called contrast that I talked about before. They see the contrast often from a poorer country or a violent country, and they see how great it is in this country. So understanding that the mindset of an immigrant or the mindset of a millionaire is so critical. The other thing I just wanted to quickly add is jot this down, is this is what we're going to find in becoming financially educated. The average person says, like, Jamie, if I want to become wealthy, what they think is that if I want to retire one day, they need to win $2 million in lotto. Because the $2 million in lotto at 5% in the bank will give them, say, $100,000 a year. Is that true? How much financial education do you have to win lotto? None. Now, ironically, the people that do win lotto, generally, statistically, 3 to 7 years later, they're worse off. So even winning lotto is not going to help. So they have zero financial education. I'm suggesting what happens is this. The more financially educated we become, draw this, by the way. Maybe you can't draw it as good as me, but draw it anyhow. So the more financially educated you become, the less money or capital you will need to retire. The more financially educated you become, the less money or capital you will need to retire, which means you can get there faster. Making sense? So as you increase your financial education, you decrease the amount of money you need. For instance, this weekend you're going to learn some strategy. I know one strategy you'll learn tomorrow, for instance. One strategy that I do out of many is I invest in US real estate as an example. As an example, $500,000 in US real estate, if you've got a good portfolio, earning close to 20% cash flow returns as an example, can generate $100,000. So what takes $2 million for someone that's financially uneducated and 5% in the bank, if you're more educated and access other strategies as an example, you can get a higher return and thus need less capital. Is it making sense? So I recognized that many years ago, and the more strategy or education I could get, even if it was costing me $5,000, $10,000 to invest in courses and learn this, it was reducing the amount of capital I'd need. Ultimately, the most sophisticated investors and entrepreneurs are able to make money with no money on many cases. Does it make sense? I mean, Nathan Tinkler, $452 million on $1 million outlay. That's a massive return. So Richard Branson at times in business would be able to make money, the highest level entrepreneur, the highest level investor, to be able to make money with no money. Does it make sense? That's the ultimate goal of being financially educated. So I think that's critical. So I'm just about out of time, and we have an awesome speaker up next. There's so much that can be taught, and admittedly in 2 days, it's a start, but obviously we need to continue to financially educate ourselves, and I could teach you a lot of strategies I don't have time to teach in my sessions.